Uncut and unscripted. You know, since Dragon dropped last weekend, officially here in the U.S., one of the things that happened was Jim Miller did a Q&A on Twitter. And basically, one of the questions I asked him, well, in fact, it was the last question I asked him, was about Dragon dropped. I pointed out to him that there were some fans, a majority of fans, that felt the episode made Sparity stronger, Spike and Rarity that is, while others felt otherwise. Jim's response was fans can interpret it any way they want. I even did a video on this with the conversation, the Q&A, if you will, that I had with him in the description box. But the reason I bring that up is because I want to talk about something that I'm sure some fans have talked about, but some fans have not. And that is why fans love Spike and Rarity and why fans don't. So let's look at why fans don't like Spike and Rarity. Well, mainly one of the major reasons is this. A lot of fans feel that Rarity doesn't feel the same way about Spike that he does her. That all she's doing is manipulating and taking advantage of him because of his crush and affection for her. And that she's doing nothing to show her affection for him in return. Except the counter argument is she does show affection for him by rewarding him with gems. Because she knows dragons eat gems, so pretty much why not reward him by giving him a little snack or a little something to snack on in the future, or to keep as a memento for one of their trips, as a something to remember the day by or the time by. So that's one thing. That's one thing that fans don't like about Spike and Rarity being together, the fact that she manipulates him and uses him to do her bidding. The other thing is somewhat kind of controversial and debated, and that is the fact that Spike is younger than her, the fact that Spike's a kid, and that it's wrong to ship a kid with an adult. And look, if this was any other kind of show based in realism, then yeah, the argument would be valid. But this is a show based in fantasy, and more along the lines, when dragons are involved in any kind of show based on fantasy, the lore is pretty much different, if not similar, to other dragon lore. That lore being that the only way dragons really grow as large as they do is through greed. Whether it's a natural growth through greed, a hyper growth through greed, whatever. But the other way it's shown that dragons can grow is through mentalness, maturity of the mind. In other words, just because they may not grow physically doesn't mean they're not grown mentally. And another counter argument to that by the show staff of all people is the fact that Spike could be basically around the same age as Rarity and the rest of the main group. He's just small for his size because he's less greedy than any other dragon. But getting back to this second reasoning and why that if it was any other show it might be valid, it's due to the fact that there is no doubt, it's no secret that this fandom, like any other fandom, has had its moments behind the scenes. It's had its controversial, unforgiving moments with the fans and portions of the fan base itself. This is why a lot of fans don't like Spike and Rarity being together, because it reminds them somewhat of that. Now, whether or not people will come out and admit it is another story. The other reason some fans don't like Spike being with Rarity is because they feel he could be better with someone else. I mean, this is coming from basically the same group of fans that feel about him not being with Rarity because of the two reasons I mentioned, but they feel he'd be more compatible with other characters because, one, these characters are around the same age as him, or these characters would be more understanding of him, or these characters are the same species. Case in point, we look at Dragon Dropped, and you have him with Gabby. And basically, people point out Gabby's around the same age range as he is, so it makes sense if you hook him up with Gabby. Another option would be Rarity's sister, Sweetie Belle. Why? Because there's an image from the ending of Canterlot Wedding that shows Spike dancing with Sweetie Belle. So there's that option, and people would say, oh, well, they're closer in age as well, so why not go that direction? But if it's not that, then it's characters that have a better understanding of him, that can relate to him. Two characters that come to mind, thanks to the fans noticing these moments, if you will, is Applejack and Starlight. The reason people choose Applejack is not just because of Bride of Discord and the fact that Disney Fanatic 2364 basically took the moment, or took the events of Spike at Your Service and built upon them. But basically, a lot of folks would look at Applejack as being a character that would be more truthful, more down to earth, more realistic, more to the point with Spike than Rarity. Now, when it comes to Starlight, some fans basically feel that she can relate with Spike. She has an understanding of Spike and he has an understanding of her, because they come from a similar situation where basically they didn't know if they were going to make friends or have anybody to be around, stuff like that. So it would make sense for those two to hook up in fans' eyes. And again, just like Jim Miller said in his response to me, you can interpretate the ending of Dragon Dropped any way you want. In other words, you could also interpretate Spike being with whoever you want, no matter how you see it. So, yeah. Fans, the same fans that feel the way they do about Spike not being with Rarity because of the two first reasons that I mentioned, basically feel that he's better off with characters like Gabby and Sweetie Belle because of the age, Applejack and Starlight because of the more mutual understanding and respect. But then we get to the same species, and we have characters like Ember and Smolder. The reason Smolder would be a good choice in people's eyes is because, yes, she's a dragon, and Spike can relate with her, can understand, or basically have another dragon to relate to and understand from. Ember is basically because of Gauntlet of Fire and the close bond and friendship they made together, and the fact that he passed his temporary status as the new Dragon Lord over to her. So, yeah, again, these ships are coming from basically the same people that don't want Spike and Rarity together because of the two reasons that I mentioned at the beginning. But what about those that do want Spike and Rarity together, like myself? Well, there's a reason. One, the reason a lot of us want Spike and Rarity to be together is basically due to the fact that Spike and Rarity have been a ship and somewhat of a romance, and whatever you want to call it, a bond that's been building since basically episode 1. And it's had its moments. One of its biggest moments was, Secret of My Excess, where basically Spike, despite how some fans interpretate it, which is their opinion, and they have a right to that, Spike generously and willingly gave his Fire Ruby jewel to Rarity. And this was something he was saving up for his birthday, but decided because she saw it as something rare and something that may never come again, he gave it to her. Basically, he gave her his heart. And then on top of that, yes, he did get a kiss in return, and they had a little bit more of an attraction, affection for each other, nuzzling and all that. But it's the ending. The ending where Spike basically is confessing to Rarity as they're falling through the sky that he has a crush on her, he has affection for her, and she stops him before he finishes with a hoof and has tears in her eyes, smiling because she knows. she understands, she knows, and she's touched by this because realistically, I think Spike turned out to be her first crush. No other pony has ever crushed on her before. So Spike is her first one. The other reason being is because they both care for each other to where they're both concerned for each other. For example, if you will, Spike caring so much about Rarity and knowing she likes jewels like he likes them, but he likes to eat them. She likes them for fashion work, or utilize them for fashion work. Planned, if not did, off panel maybe, take Rarity to go see these jewels in Canterlot when they went to the gala at the end of the first season. Now, on top of that, you take a look at the fact that Rarity was very concerned about him in Dragon Quest, and even as Twilight, when they let Spike go to kind of fulfill his destiny or find out who he is, she basically asked Twilight, "We're following him, aren't we?" And Twilight's like, "Yeah." So you can't tell me that she doesn't care about Spike in that manner. I mean, heck, she defends Spike when she basically, in that iconic scene where she tells the dragons that are bullying Spike or getting ready to tear Spike apart, that even though fighting's not her thing, she's more into fashion, that she'll rip them to pieces if they touch him. I mean, honestly, here's the thing. You can say what you will about Rarity and how you may interpret how she treats Spike and all that, but these are moments that I'm mentioning is why we as fans, the bigger majority of the fan base that supports Sparity, whether people want to believe it or they don't, and that's their choice, why we want to see it happen or why we believe it's happened. I mean, heck, you take a look at the Crystal Empire and how Spike's the one, of course, that saved the Crystal Empire. But who's the first one to notice him when he mentions he's got the crystal heart? It's Rarity. Who's the first one that's concerned about him and says anything when he seems to be falling to his death? Rarity. You get what I'm saying? I mean, again, you could feel and believe what you want to feel and believe, but these are moments that we're all pointing out. I mean, heck, you take a look at, what is it, season 5, if you will, and Scaremaster, and how many times is Spike next to Rarity in that episode? Heck, Rarity grabs onto him when they're getting scared to death by Fluttershy, when she's trying to get into the spirit of Nightmare Night, aka their version of Halloween. I mean, seriously. Now, I will admit that over time it did kind of die down a little bit. Now, I will admit, along with a lot of people that support Sparity, that the ship did kind of cool off a little bit between seasons 3, 4, 5, 6, and even 7. I mean, you had your moments in season 3. You had some moments, I believe, in season 4. You had moments in season 5. Castlemania, oh, not Castlemania, but Sweet Castle was one of them. You had your moments there because, okay, I'll admit, Rarity knew that the only way they were going to get Spike out of the castle to distract Twilight while they were fixing it up was to sweet talk him, and that's what she did. So you got to admit that even though those that don't like the ship don't like the manipulation part, that basically her doing it that way was for a good cause. You have to admit that. Or else, how else are you going to get Spike out of there? Now, Gauntlet of Fire did touch upon it as well, because it did show that, unlike in previous times, I guess, according to fans, Rarity, dirty and all, went to Twilight's castle to kind of tell her what was going on with Spike and everything. Heck, she was even the first one to ask the question of, what do you mean you have to win the gauntlet? Like, Like basically she's asking, hey, what are you talking about? You, the dragon that likes me, my boyfriend, if you will. Why do you feel you're the one that has to do it? Stuff like that. So, like I said, stuff like that in Gauntlet of Fire. Now, it's not just Gauntlet of Fire either. And like I said, during the time period of seasons 3 to 7, it did kind of cool off with a few exceptions here and there. It wasn't until about season 8 that it really started to pick up steam again. And thanks to Breakdown, it really picked up steam. Because it was there when Spike's trying to teach Discord about love and romance, that he pulls out a freaking big Valentine's Day or Hearts and Hooves Day card he has with a poem made for Rarity. And if that's not all, Molt Down is basically a Sparity episode somewhat. And then you have Best Gift Ever. You see, these are moments that basically outweigh and outnumber the moments that kind of showcase Rarity in the eyes of fans that don't want to see the ship occur, showcases her manipulating and utilizing and not returning Spike's affection and These are moments that we as fans that want to support or that do support and want to see Sparity become a reality, we look at as evidence. Because in all honesty, the show staff did not, and this is the truth, the show staff did not have to put these moments in these little arcs or whatever in the show if they wanted to. They didn't have to, but they did. And then, of course, you take a look at season 9 and the first 20 seconds of the mid-season finale. And, you take a look at the few moments that Spike and Rarity were together in Summer Sun Setback. And then, of course, Dragon Dropped. And these are moments, Dragon Drop being one of them, maybe not Rarity's best moments, but still being one of them where we kind of these are moments that we kind of say, look, this is why Sparity will happen if it didn't already happen. And I'll explain that in a moment. But all the moments that I just mentioned, just like I said, outnumber the moments that a lot of the fans that don't want Spike and Rarity to be together, and the reasons they have for them not being together, it outnumbers those in a major, major way. It outnumbers them in a major, major way. Now, in closing though, let me explain why I believe Sparity has already happened and why, well, technically, we don't see it focused on as much, but we do kind of see hints here and there. The reason why I think Sparity has already happened, despite how other fans feel, and again, they have the right to their opinion, is because of this. The biggest moment came in Best Gift Ever. And like I said, they didn't have to put that in there, but they did. So to me, that was the culmination of seasons built to that moment. I know that didn't make sense there, but what I was saying is that's evidence of seasonal building to that moment. And again, what I'm saying is, Sparity probably has already happened in a somewhat semi-official canon situation. Because when you look at Dragon Dropped, why is Rarity so upset? I mean, Rarity in the past has not had a problem with Spike hanging out with anybody else. So why now? Is it because he's not paying attention to her? Maybe. But the way she acts in the episode is not that of a friend that feels, oh, they're going to get replaced by somebody else. No. The way she acts, and some people can look at it this way, and some people don't want to, and that's fine, whatever, is that of a jealous girlfriend. Like, basically, she's the jealous girlfriend that feels she's going to get dumped by her boyfriend for someone else. And in the end, she doesn't. And another reason we feel Sparity has already happened, and we're just getting these moments here and there, more so to kind of somewhat semi-confirm it, despite how people feel, and again, they got their opinion to it, is they could have easily ended drag and drop with Spike and Gabby, I should say, flying off to do Gabby's errands, and Rarity walking off smiling, knowing that she's, kind of resolved and kind of reconciled with Spike and Gabby and kept her friendship with Spike alive and made a new one with Gabby. They could have ended it right there, but no. They threw in that little tidbit at the end with Spike going back to the gem cave, mentioning, yeah, me and Gabby had a great day, but I'll always still want my Rarity time. And then Pinky's little line at the end kind of insinuating, there might be something more between the two. Basically, there's just too much evidence to say otherwise. And again, I know fans may not like this. They may not care for Spike and Rarity being together, or at least any kind of confirmation, small or otherwise, that okay, there is something there now between them that's more than friendship. But again, if you look at the evidence, you look at the moments spewed, I should say, throughout not just this season, but more so last season and throughout the entire series. And you can even add sometimes some moments in the comics and stuff. If you were to look at all those moments spewed throughout, it shows you that Sparity is indeed semi-canon at least. But, like I said, these are moments and reasonings why fans want to see it, why they support Spike and Rarity, why they like Rarity. And as you could tell just by the length that this section's going, like I mentioned, how much these moments outnumber the ones that fans that don't like Sparity being an item, look at as the negatives. Because, like I said, the ones that look at it as the negatives basically look at the age reasoning, Spike being with someone that's more suitable for him, and the manipulation. And yeah, some of those ideally are good reasonings if you interpret it that way. If you want to interpret it that way, that's fine. But those moments, those little moments that you will point out that relates to those get outnumbered by the Sparity moments that show otherwise. And that basically semi-confirm and semi-canonize these two being together. Now, do we have any further proof as far as what's to come afterwards? Not to give much away, but I can't really say. Some people have said there are moments that indicate they're together. Some have said otherwise. So I can't really say. I've said enough pretty much already, if you will, when it comes to that kind of situation. But again, overall, in the end, guys, if you were to do a poll right now, and you took all the moments that were positive about Sparity and semi-confirmed the fact that there's more to them than friendship, and you were to have it go against everything that the fans that don't want Sparity to be an item, and the issues they have and the reasonings they have. And I'm not saying this just because I'm a Sparity supporter, but I'm saying this because it's very evident, no matter how you look at it, that if you were to do a poll, the positives would definitely outweigh the negatives. There's no doubt about it. So, in the end, guys, there's nothing really more I can say about it. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully you take your time in listening to it. But these are basically reasons why fans don't like and why they do like Sparity as a couple. So let me know what you all think down below. Comment if you like, and I am out.